Hi guys and gals, John Abali. Today we're going to talk about a great exercise for developing your legs. The target muscles of this exercise is going to be mainly your glutes and your TFL. So the muscles that abduct the leg or bring the leg up from the side are going to be involved. Although other muscles like your quads and your hamstring, specifically the lateral part of those muscles, are going to be involved as well. But mainly we're talking about the gluteus muscles, so the gluteus maximus, minimus, medius, and the muscles in this area the most. Now I'm going to first do the exercise and then we're going to go through the details, safety measures, and also variations. Good. Now there are a lot of variations, a lot of tempos, a lot of tweaks that you can do with this exercise, but first we're gonna start with the safety measurements that you have to consider. Before going through the safety measurements, I've gotta talk about one of the exercises that a lot of people perform for the glutes, but it ends up ruining their meniscus, their knee, their ligaments in this area, which is performing a leg abduction with a cable or a resistance band, but not here. So what they do is, I see it many times, specifically girls. Then they wanna train their glutes, they strap a cable all the way to their ankles and they just move it to the side, and you've just got to consider that the resistance from the cable is bringing this bone, so the tibia and fibula, so just consider your lower leg to this side, and you're giving a powerful contraction with your glutes, which is a really strong muscle, and you're just bringing this bone, so the thigh bone or femur, up really fast. So what ends up happening is this part of the leg, so the lower leg coming to this side and the thigh bone going out, and that's just gonna ruin the meniscus in your knee, also the ligaments in this area, and it's just gonna be really bad. It can even cause IT band problems, so the IT band syndrome that a lot of people get. No, I'm not saying it's gonna be just for this exercise, but it can make it worse or just make inflammation in that area. Anyway, make sure you do not go down. Aside from safety, even if you control the weight, you're not going to be that much strong. Again, because of the reasons mentioned. Even if you control it, because you're going to feel pain as you try to overload it, it's just going to be hard. So when you bring it up, you're going to just affect this area and it's going to be a lot safer. So make sure it's just 1 inch higher than your knee. So it doesn't matter if you bring it up and put it on your knee. It's gonna cause the same problems again. So make sure it's a little bit higher than your knee, so your knee is not affected at all. So you bring it up, hold, down. Now, because this is a resistance band, as you stretch it, it's gonna be harder. Then you go out, try to hold it at the end. But if you're training with a cable, you can just ignore the upper part. Although it's better to keep the full contraction, but it's not that necessary that it is with a resistance band. So make sure you do that. And another thing that you've got to consider about the positioning of the band is where you put it on a bar or something to just hold. If you go in the middle, you're gonna feel the contraction a little bit less as you go up. So if the bottom was not there, was here, I would have felt it a little bit easier as I go up. But when I go down, I'm gonna feel the contraction a lot more when I come up. So that's the main difference, and that is kind of true with cables as well. So because of the dynamic of the cable or resistance band or whatever, it's gonna make a difference where you position it. And again, just to go through the details a little bit fast, it's all about the angle. So if my leg is here and this is 90 degrees, I've got the most resistance. So if the band was all the way up here and I was doing it from here to here, I would have felt the most, but from here to here it would be really weak. But when I go down, actually the few degrees are going to be a little bit easier, but as I go up, because then it's going to be 90 degrees if I'm in this position, so the band compared to my leg is going to be 90 degrees, I'm going to feel the most resistance. But anyway, just to put it in simple terms, if you want to have the best contraction at the top, go down. If you want to just, pulse down here or just have little contractions in this area, go up. But make sure you do not come too much up either. If you try to bring it too much up, so for example, let's say here, if I try to do the exercise, it's just gonna come up. So if I put it here, it's just gonna come all the way up and it's not gonna be beneficial. Also remember, you should not, even if this is down, so even if it's here, still you should not put the band all the way up, like here. So just 1 inch of your knee is enough. If you go too much high, you're not gonna feel the contraction to that extent. So we covered where you should put the band, where it should be on the other side as well. Now let's talk about the body itself. Starting from the toes, you can perform this exercise several ways. The best way is to just make sure toes are pointed forward. So when you do this, you're gonna feel the glutes and also the TFL, which is here, get contracted both with each other. But if you point the toes out, so you externally rotate the hip or point the toes in, different muscles are going to be activated. So the more you point it out, the more the TFL is going to be activated, and the more you go up, you're going to feel that even your hip flexors and even your ab is going to be activated. So if the toe is out, I'm going to feel a lot of contraction in here as well. So TFL here, and also as mentioned, my abs are going to be activated because if I bring it too much up, my hip is going to be moved as well. And if I bring the toes too much down and go back, I'm going to feel it, of course, in my glutes, but I'm going to feel that my lower back is also doing the job as well because it's bringing the hip back. So again, if you just want to target the muscles in this area, just toes forward, bring it up. It doesn't matter if you bend the knee a little bit, so you shouldn't be all the way straight. If it's just a little bit painful, you can bend the knee, but just make sure you do not internally rotate the hip. So even if you bend the knee, make sure the toes are aligned with the knee. So bring the knee up, not the feet. But most people do not have any problem with it. They can just keep the leg straight and do the exercise. So we talked about the feet, we talked about the knee. Now let's talk about your hip positioning. Whether you're straight up and you do the exercise, or you bend the hip and do the exercise. What's the difference? When you bend the hip, so you're in this position, you're stretching the biggest gluteus muscle. So the gluteus maximus, which is on top, is gonna be stretched, and when a muscle is stretched, it's not gonna be able to perform at its best. So you're gonna feel it a lot more in front of yourself, so in your TFL, you're gonna feel it a lot more. And if your goal is to strengthen this muscle, of course do it, but most people wanna train their glutes when they do this exercise. So if it's really uncomfortable for you to keep yourself all the way up, it's alright, you can bend a little bit forward. Just know that the more you go forward, the more you're gonna stretch the biggest gluteus muscle. And the reason is because it's attached to your sacrum and the hip in this area. When you go down, you're stretching it, and when you stretch it too much, it's not gonna be able to perform at its best. But there is a small tweak that you can do, which is you do the contraction, and when you go back, you bend forward, so you contract the muscle and then you stretch it as well. Now, of course, you can just play with it, see how it feels, but when you contract the muscle fully and stretch it fully, it has shown to be really beneficial. So you can try it out, see how it feels. Now, let's come a little bit higher. Of course, your core is going to be activated. But a big mistake that a lot of people make is how they position their torso. I've seen it many times. People do not keep their torso straight. They do not do the exercise like this. They bend their torso as well. You see, this exercise is effective when this leg or the leg that you're training is going to the side when your body is straight. If I keep it straight and move my torso, I'm not contracting here. I'm just using my core to bring myself up. So make sure your torso is straight. You can just grab on some things to make sure that you do not bounce around, because it's really hard if you do not have support and do the exercise. It's just gonna be really hard for you. But if you've got something to support you, it's gonna be easier. But if you did not have anything to support yourself, again, you can bend this knee a little bit and do the exercise. You're gonna feel that you have more balance compared to a straight leg. Now let's talk about another issue that a lot of people do, but I'm not saying it's bad for their health, but it's gonna affect the exercise, the dynamic of the exercise, which is they do not come straight from the side. They go either back or they go forward. Now, we talked about the feet positioning, about whether it's external rotation or internal rotation of the feet. I'm not talking about eversion or inversion. So when your feet is out or in without the movement of the thigh is not our topic. We're talking about the thigh rotating as well. So we covered that a little bit earlier. Now, this is pretty much easy. When you bring it forward, you're gonna feel that subconsciously your toes come a little bit out. So you feel that you've got a little bit more external rotation of the hip. And when you go back, it's just unintentionally the toes come in, so you feel the internal rotation of the hip. And as mentioned, when you externally rotate, so you've got the external rotation, you feel it more here. It doesn't matter. I can have external rotation and come back. I can have external rotation and come forward. I can have internal rotation and come forward. Internal rotation, come back. I still can play with it. But anyway, you do not need to do a lot of variation. These are just for understanding and knowing the dynamic of the body. The best way, as mentioned, is keeping the toes forward, going to the side, coming back. You do not need to bring it forward, you do not need to bring it back. Just go to the side, come back. And also, you can do this exercise with dumbbells as well. If you did not have any cable or any resistance band, you can just lay on the ground and either ask somebody to put a dumbbell in here, so a little bit higher than your knee, and you just bring it up and down. Or you can just strap a dumbbell or something on your thigh and bring it up and down. But again, make sure it's not too much up so you do not feel it, or too much down that is on your knee.